Before we convert the overlocker to do a cover stitch, I might actually just show you how to go around a complete circle with the overlocker, because this doesn't have a free arm. Now all we need to do is we actually take out this front needle. So I'll unscrew it, take the needle out and snip the thread. Okay, I'll just pop it here for safekeeping. Now this is already set up for a 3-thread overlock, which is stitch number 7, and it's still A. Okay. Now, when you have to overlock around a complete circle, we have to make sure that we've turned that to one side, making it easy to go around. Now we're working on the right side of the garment, but we have the garment inside out. Okay. Now we raise the foot and just pull your chain to the back like so, and insert your fabric under the foot just to the back of your seam. Okay, so don't start right on the seam, maybe 4 or 5 centimeters towards the back of the seam, and start overlocking towards you, and just rotate that fabric as it comes forward. Oh, there we go. As you come round to where you started, remember to snip that extra chain off, and before we trim the top of our stitches, just like we did before in rolled hem, we disengage the blade and close the door again. That way we can stay in direct line of our overlocking, and overlap it about 1.5 centimeters. Now raise the presser foot and just take the fabric out from underneath the foot towards the back of the overlocker and make a chain off. And leave yourself a little bit of a chain there. And what we do with that, because we need to get rid of that to tidy it up, take our loop turner and insert that loop turner through the back of your stitching, and then bring that chain back through underneath, and there you go, you've overlocked around a complete circle. So that might happen on your sleeve or on your hem, trouser hem or skirt hem. Anywhere where you have to do a complete circle. Okay, now we're going to convert the overlocker to a cover hem machine. So the quickest way to do that is to just snip all of your threads like so. Snip the thread at the needle and pull everything out. So we now have an overlocker that, oops, did I miss one? Oh no, there it is. That is totally unthreaded. We have to make a few physical changes to the overlocker now. First thing we need to do is bring our stitch finger back to rolled hem, even though we're not doing a rolled hem. We do have to disengage the blade, so if you haven't done that already, do that now. The width needs to be on the narrowest width, so take the dial all the way to the very end. This brings the stationary blade in closer, so we can then put our cover plate on. First of all, before I do that though, I do need to disengage the looper, and on the at the front here you actually have a little flick switch that goes from A to B. So we now locked it in the B position, and this stops the upper looper from bobbing up and down. Okay, now the other thing we need to do is establish which cover hem we're actually going to do. There is 3 types. You have a triple, you have double wide, and you have double narrow. So I might start by doing double wide and placing my automatic tension dial on H. So that's ready. The other thing we can do while we're here is actually change the stitch length. Now, because this is a type of top stitching, you might want your stitch length a little longer. So somewhere between 3 and 4, I probably would put it on 3.5. Should be a good stitch length. Now, let's first put our lower looper or our chain looper in first. Now I'm going to take all these threads off because cover hemming is actually top stitching, and I like to use quality thread for that. Okay, so we've got in the chain looper, you can probably put one of your overlocker threads, or you can, if you are overlocking swimwear, you can actually put woolly nylon on there. So this one's the thread that is underneath, and let's start by threading up the chain looper. Now be forceful, and when you're placing that thread through your tension disc, so pull that through, and we're following the purple threading path. So through all our purple marked thread guides. Now, just bringing that needle up to the highest position will bring your chain looper forward. So I will just thread that first, and then with the slack of the thread, there is a thread guide just here at the bottom. I can just see it without getting in your way. There you go. Now, place that thread over the automatic looper threader and just bring your switch up all the way, and that's threaded that for you. Now remember, the chain looper just hangs down into the cavity there. I'll just shut that for a second, and now we'll thread up our 2 needles. So using your good quality thread, oh, hang on, I think it's this one I need to thread, yep. So this is in what would normally be your upper looper, but because we're cover stitching, we're using this threading path, so it's the red one. But instead of going underneath into the looper area, we just take a diversion over to our needles, and this one threads the right needle, which I do have to move in position. So I'm just going to take out my overlocker needle and bringing that into position. This goes into the E position, which is the one on the right. So if you're looking at your 3 holes in your foot, this one's the first one. And we can thread that one up. Using our needle threader. There we go. That's simple. Okay, now taking your other good quality thread, which is already on the overlocker by the way, and this one is the blue threading Pfaff. Under the button, through the tension dials, and this one will thread the left needle. So I need to put my spare needle in that position. And this is going into the C position. Push that needle all the way and you should see the top of the needle at the top in the chamber. So can you see it there? Just at the top. And I will thread my needle. Great little gadget that. Okay, so now I have both my needles threaded. Now this overlocker comes with a handy extension table, so if you are cover stitching, you've got something to prop your fabric up on. Now we need to change our A cover plate by just removing it, putting that to one side, and this is our B cover plate. Just notice it says B here, and holding the door ajar slightly, just slide that cover plate in position and click into place. Okay, and there is our overlocker set up to be a cover hem machine. Now we should do a test sew first. And remember to do it on 2 layers of fabric. And you're always working from the right side with this. Now your overlocker cover plate actually has markings in centimeters and inches so that you can line your hem up with one of those markings. Okay, so I'll just do it on 3 there. Put your foot down so we can get a chain happening here. And start overlocking or start stitching. Just draw those threads to the back. There we go. Now before you run off, because you shouldn't run off with cover stitching, just make sure you stop with the needles in the very highest position and then turn your hand wheel backwards, so to the back of the machine, and do a complete circle until your needles are in the highest position again, and lift the foot up, grabbing your fabric where you ended your stitching, just pinch it like between 2 fingers and draw it to the side, and there you go. So that's your test piece. Okay, now while we've got the back showing here, I might just show you how to end off so you can see this a couple of times. Now there's a loop that forms, here we go, just that last loop, there we go. If you can, oops, I might just use that one, and just grab your tweezers and bring the end of your thread through the loop and lock that into position, and that prevents your overlocking or your cover hemming from unraveling. So if you don't do that, it will just keep unraveling. Now with these two, you can thread those through a needle and draw them back and then pull that through the back using your loop turner, and you've ended a seam. So that's what a cover hem looks like. Okay, and I'll just show you a sample on some stretch fabric. So if you were to do hems on tracksuits. That's what your cover hem finish looks like on stretch fabric. So that's the back and that's the front. So you use the wider stitching on thicker fabrics and the narrow stitching on finer fabrics. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do a cover hem on something that's round, so completely in a circle. But before I do that, I just want to show you how to distribute the bulk here so that your overlocker doesn't balk when it needs to go over seams. Now always when you're turning your hems up, make sure that you distribute the bulk by putting one seam to the right and one seam to the left. So do so by turning it up like that, and that way you've got a little bit of seam allowance on either side, so it's nice and even when it has to go over that little bump. Alright, so I've done that on both sides. And turn your garment to the right side. You might want to put a few pins in there. Okay, let me do that. But always put your pins in so that you can take them out easily. So put them in at right angles. Okay. So once you've put your pins in, turn your garment inside out, so you're actually sewing in the cavity. Now we might put our foot pressure down to 1 because we have bulky fabric, and insert that under the foot. Remember not to start on the seam, always start a little way back, and usually on the back of the garment somewhere, you know, like towards the back of your sleeve or towards the inside of your leg if it's your cuff. And take out that first pin and make sure that you follow one of the markings on your plate so that your roll hem, your cover hem is nice and even. So bring that foot down and start stitching. And just gently roll the fabric towards you and straighten it up as it stitches over the hem. Oops. Now as you come to where you started, keep that overlocker foot straight in line. Now I like to trim these threads. These won't unravel because it's where you started. It only unravels from the end. And just overlap that in the same line you started for about 2 centimeters. Now stop with the needles in the highest position, like so, and then turn the hand wheels back a complete rotation. And that drops the stitch off from underneath, which allows you to then pull the fabric from under the foot. Now pinch that end stitching between your thumb and forefinger and pull that right out. And leave yourself a little bit of a tail because you do need to work on underneath. Now you'll notice that it was directly in line with each other, so it's a nice neat finish. Now pulling that underneath loop, just unravel one stitch. There's my loop. And just gently bring that loop out so that it's larger enough to get your tweezers through, and bring the thread through and lock it off. And just tug on it to make sure you've locked it. Now remember, you can bring these two threads to the back, but if you don't see them, you can actually snip them off right there. But I do like to pull this thread through, so just using your loop turner, catch the end of that thread. Oops, let me do that again. Oh, it just keeps closing. And draw that through underneath, and that way it's secure and it will definitely not unravel. Okay, so you've just finished off the sleeve or the leg of a tracksuit.